In 1947, in Qumran, a mysterious cache of manuscripts were uncovered. Scholarly consensus has held that the Essene library was hidden ahead of the Roman advance in 68 CE, when Qumran was partially destroyed. The understanding of the Essenes as an influential legal society. The Dead Sea Scrolls represents not an isolated library, quickly hidden, but burials of manuscripts from numerous Essene collections, placed in jars and caves for long-term preservation. The historical context of the Dead Sea's area itself, and its extraordinary natural resources as well as archaeological of Qumran, confirm the Essenes' patronage by Herod the Great and indicate that they harnessed the medicinal material the Dead Sea Zone provides to this day. Quote, "From the remote ages of antiquity, a remarkable teaching has existed that is universal in its application and ageless in its wisdom." Unquote. Author Go With Wind. Its energy impulse carried in the winds of time are the breath of its life itself, and exists since the creation of our world. It is eternal, and it never goes away. It never truly leaves us. Depending upon our state of evolution, it often lies dormant in the deepest recesses of our subconscious. There are masters who have attempted to herald in an awakening of this impulse in our sleeping souls throughout various evolutions and cultures. Many of the symbols, metaphors, and analogies, such as the sun, moon, water, and other natural forces, are from an even earlier age, preceding the cataclysm that ended the Pleistocene period. Could Enoch of early Atlantis be the originator of these teachings that heavily influenced ancient wisdom? It most certainly predates the post-Atlantean cultural epochs of India, Egypt, Greece, and Rome. What many are unaware of is that their teachings and practices most likely influenced all the masters of ancient cultures, including principles such as Hinduism, Hermetics, Gnosticism, Buddhism, and early Christianity. The teachings and practices are transmitted in most pure form by the mysterious Brotherhood of the Essenes, a radical Jewish sect of the pre-Christians Nazarene. The Brotherhood lived during the last 2 or 3 centuries BC, and during the 1st century of Christian era. Traces of their somewhat sequestered and humbled communities are found in the Dead Sea area of Palestine and Lake Maurice, Egypt. Finally, though nobody truly knows their exact origin, the study of these divinely inspired teachings opens minds and hearts for understanding and remembering our true connections to Spirit and Divine Source. Well before the creation and material worship of gods and goddesses, religious dogma, literal interpretations, and inversions of truth. They are extremely beneficial for those today that are awakening to awareness of self and to the original divine creation and subsequent evolution of humanity's consciousness. They can reawaken an intuitive knowledge for personal problem solving and for better understanding of the challenges of the world and current events. Seeing everything as conscious, observers through higher spiritual minds. Join us Friday night as we explore this unique ancient mystery school. Hey, welcome everybody to Andromeda 7, your celestial gateway, your channel for community support, help, friendship, love, knowledge, and being of value to others. Welcome back, and if you're new to the channel, it is so good to have you with us. If you're returning, hey, we love that. It's Friday night, and you know what that means. It is time to feed your mind and grow your heart. Tonight's topic, and we're loving this, the mystery of the Essenes. The Essenes, what an interesting topic. And I'll tell you, I didn't know much about this subject until I started really researching it, getting into it, sharing information with Teresa. And it's really been super cool to learn about yeah, even Jesus's dealings with them and what he learned and what they learned from him. So fascinating stuff, and I'm looking forward to discussing it. But before we do that, I'd like to go into chat and acknowledge chat because we appreciate the chatters. And hi, Mary Wins. Good to see you. Hey, thank you for that Facebook tip. That was great. I filed my little claim and I'm good to go. So I'm glad you put that
Me
out there.
too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Awesome.
Scotty boy, always a pleasure. You got your bamber? You got your binky out? You got your blankie? Y'all
You got
ready?
your
You want some
pants on?
popcorn?
Well,
You wearing your pants?
poke the bear. He's
Wasn't going
behaving.
there. Hey.
Oh.
Okay, beloved abstract, good to see you, sir. Welcome, Sip of the Divine. Always a pleasure to see you in here. Thank you for being here. Hi, Elderberry. Good to see you, Barry Chad. How those
Thank you
little
for
chicks doing? They're so cute when they're baby.
Aw.
thank you
Yeah,
for sharing out the video just now too, Barry. Appreciate that.
absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Jeannie Musgrave, good to see you. Glad you're here. Thank you. And let's see, Lucky Stone, always a pleasure. Grace, peace, joy, compassion to you as well, brother. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Loving your videos, definitely loving your videos. Some interesting stuff over there. I just recently watched your sorry video. Why do we say sorry? I like that a lot. It's very cool. So good job on your videos there, brother. Let's see. I think that is it for the moment. And you know what comes next is I turn it over to Teresa and she gives her opening remarks about the Essenes.
All right. Well, greetings, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to
Happy
our viewing
Friday.
audience. Yeah. Happy.
Happy.
I don't know about you all, but we had like a code orange. Too much pollution, particles. Be careful what you breathe. And like they're telling me this after I already went out there and started choking, which is true. I was sneezing and choking. I put my hand across the table and held it up to Lori and took a picture of all these particles
It was
all
nasty.
over my hand. It was
Yeah.
nasty, and
That would be a good time to wear a mask.
Ruby and I were out there breathing it, and I didn't even know it. And
Huh.
yeah. So
Yeah.
got to watch the climate now. Anyway, enough of that.
Mhm.
Essenes happens to be one of my favorite subjects. Yeah, because Lori brought it up to me, and I'm like, I can't believe you're talking to me about this. I
I was
started it.
guided. I was guided by my guides. This is all
Yeah.
divinely guided stuff. So
Nice.
Yeah, she got the nudge to go into it, and it
Mhm.
just happens to be a subject I've studied it since I was like 15 or 16, and
Oh, damn.
off and on, picked it up,
Mhm.
put it down, and I see
Awesome.
it through a different set of lenses these days too. So, so anyway, what we're discussing, look, the mysteries of our hidden past are so very broad, right? And they're important and rich in subject, and we're compelled to, well, Lori and I, occasionally, we're compelled to repeatedly illuminate new aspects, approaching everything from different perspectives, to fully appreciate our evolution and all that is and still is coming. Not everybody feels that way. Leave the past alone. Why bother
Mhm.
talking about history? Why talk about evolution? What does it matter with my now? Well, there's a lot to learn from reawakening to some things that you may not have even been aware of in this consciousness that will help you move forward. Who knows? Helped me. But we find that a healthy awareness of both past and future evolutionary streams in human earthly life to be extremely valuable for our continued self improvement and the choices that we make along our ascension journey. So that's why we do these kinds of topics. We hope it'll help you too. Now, while these explorations can be provocative at times and fun, things get really challenging and convoluted when mainstream archaeologists and historians dispute one another and they come to blows with their esoteric brothers and sisters who are researchers looking into alternative storylines. And they're often relying upon anecdotal experiences to fill in those missing gaps due to a lack of tangible evidence from the archaeologists and from the regular traditional history and research, geology, and all the sciences. So they toss out anything that comes from a mystic. They toss out the esoteric perspective on a lot of things, including artifacts, because they don't understand them. They don't know how to interpret them, or because they have a hidden agenda. They don't want us to know things from a different perspective because they all seem to have their world, how they want to view things, and they want to keep that in control, and they want to keep the people from knowing certain things because it undermines their authority. So we, though, thank goodness, are spiritual curiosity seekers and truth seekers who refuse their narrow-minded approaches. So even the thinking of the earliest human beings was dreamlike and imaginative because they knew how to tap in. So why stop now, right? Why should we stop? We esoteric mystics have faculties that allow us to tap into all sorts of data that the others just can't do it. They can't access it. They can't stay open-minded to it or accept it. And this includes our early downloads that we got from Rudolph Steiner long before things were uncovered in the Vatican Library, and long before the scrolls were found at Qumran. People like Rudolph Steiner, Qumran, people like Rudolph Steiner, Edgar Casey, even Dolores Cannon recently, and before she passed on, other people who have past life experiences and memories, and even those of us who have current connections and visions and dreams. All that anecdotal information helps fill it in. And you'll be amazed tonight at some of the things that Steiner came up with that were just off the charts when the actual hard evidence was found. It's like, wow, this dude was tapped in. So tonight, let's have a little bit of fun, shall we? And set aside preconceived ideas about the accuracy and interpretations of history from an purely academic perspective. And set aside our personal preferences and beliefs, suspend it a little bit, and keep our lighthearted, open minds, keep our spirits alive, and just enjoy what we learn from the stories. Enjoy what we learn. Because there's going to be folks that have picked up stuff that the folks here on the panel haven't. So who knows? True. Maybe a light bulb or two will go off and you'll walk off with an aha moment. Right, Lori?
Mm-hmm. You got it. Most definitely. Where shall we begin?
Well, it's interesting that we discovered actual physical evidence of the Essenes in 1947 in the form of the so-called Dead Sea Scrolls.
Right.
Okay, the 1947 Qumran, that's a significant year and a significant place because it's literally a stone's throw away from where they discovered the Nag Hammadi scrolls, which interestingly enough, they attribute to Egypt. And Qumran, the discoveries there are attributed to Israel. In fact, it was Egyptian territory up until the Six-Day War in 1967 when Israel took that area over in the Negev Desert. So it's also interesting that 1947 is the year that Roswell happened, the year that the CIA was formed.
Yeah, Roswell, that's right.
A whole bunch of other interesting things happened. The discovery of semiconductors, a whole bunch of stuff. You know, it wasn't just the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but that in and of itself is like an anomaly. Why? Because that's the first instance where they found like what you would consider to be the first edition of the Bible in its original form.
Yeah.
In its unedited, raw form, where, you know, since the Dead Sea Scrolls and since that writing, it's been edited and recanonized. And by canonized, it means like, okay, somebody picked and chose which books or which manuscripts would be included. And chief among those would have been Polycarp in the 3rd century AD, who basically wrote the Bible, the modern Bible as it's known, the Old and New Testaments, all 66 books. So, yeah, I mean, the discovery of at Qumran, that's definitely a significant thing. And what everybody's asking is, why wasn't it discovered before that? You know, because it's not
ready for it.
Yeah.
Ooh, I believe that's true. I believe that's very true.
Yeah.
And it was so, the information is so intense and precise. I mean, the Romans were pressing down on that area and they were taking it over, and they had to get that really important information, and all they had were the scrolls and those jars, and suddenly they got to scramble to keep that information all to put together. And then being in that dry, arid desert, the area that they were in, and being able to, for those scrolls to get through so much time in that dry, very arid desert is just fascinating to me, that it's even there to this day. So somebody obviously had some forethought. But my suspicion is that the Essenes were very spiritually connected to the divine as well. And so that is really interesting to me, that they had that connection. So maybe that foresight had something to do with keeping that information sacred and kept close and protected.
Well, the other question is, why would the Romans care? Why would the Romans want to take over like a barren piece of desert?
Because
What made
Romans
them?
do what they do, and they don't want you to do what you're doing, and they don't want you to have those freedoms. And can you imagine, these Essenes have been living a certain way for so long, and then the Romans come in and want to take over everything, and here you are with your whole way of life changing. You know,
Yeah, they were
like
threatened
almost like
by
a dictatorship.
they were threatened by by the following that these different break-off groups and sects had with populace, and they wanted to control the populace. They basically wanted to
Yeah.
enslave them. And
Well, that wasn't the main goal of like these takeovers was taxation. Well, I'm not
money,
an
money,
apologist.
money.
It's all
Sure,
about the money.
I'm not an
Yeah,
apologist for Rome or Romanism in any
yeah,
way. But
Hmm.
most of the conquered countries or conquered peoples didn't really have a big problem with it. They did have a problem with the taxation aspect of it, but the ones who gave them the most problems were the Israelis, actually, the Israelites, because of religious reasons. Because when the Romans would take over any people, they would naturally recognize their gods as their own gods. They would add them to the pantheon. Except that the Israelites weren't cool with that, because they were like, well, our God is the only God, and therefore,
right.
he can't be put up there with all those other gods like Jupiter, Apollo, Osiris, or whatever. They took offense at that, and they also took offense at sending 10% of their money overseas, as
Yeah,
Um,
taxation.
Max Vision remote viewing class. Hi, Max. Good to have you with us. Thanks for
hey
Yeah.
being
Max.
here.
Yeah.
There were taxes collected from the offering. Uh, the Roman altar. You needed a slip of paper proving you had done them. Yes, this is interesting. I play this game called Assassin's Creed on Xbox, and I play Odyssey and a bunch of other ones. And in the game, there are all these altars all over the place. There's animal offerings, there's money, there's flowers, there's food, there's all kinds of stuff. Anything of value they brought, they would make these offerings, and it's quite interesting to see the history in a game like that. But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've actually seen that displayed
Hmm.
on that game. Fascinating.
That's
Um,
also why
Yeah,
they had money changers inside the temple. It,
yeah, yeah, yep. You
because
come in,
generally
you
you
want
would
to
have
make
to
your,
pay
yep.
your tax in like a certain type of coin that the Romans accepted. They wouldn't accept any other type of coin. So you basically had to buy, like, change your currency for Roman coins that you could then present as your authorization to make an offering.
Yeah. Interesting comment here with Lucky Stone. The problem with Rome, the rich had slaves, which is very true. The
Uh,
slaves made growing food cheaper. The small farmers could not compete with the rich slave owners, so the small
yep.
farmers moved to the city and onto welfare.
Hmm.
Absolutely, that's very
yeah,
true. Yeah.
And that's also why generally speaking, most of the people did not approve of slavery, because it gave like the big business of the time an unfair advantage, because they had free labor. You can't compete with zero. You can't compete with $0 per hour.
true.
Right. And
I know
didn't
there was. Oh, go ahead.
nope, you go ahead.
I know that there was, in addition to some of the politics that were going on there, there was also their own inner church politics, if you will, the split between the different priestly classes, and the people felt the reason there were so many different cults is because the people felt that the Pharisees got in too much control, too much power. They were making everything so dogmatic, and they were in league with, to a certain extent, the Romans, because they were just as concerned about as the Romans were about losing control of their own people.
Yeah.
And so, but the peoples were waking up. And what I find interesting about this whole society, mark me if I'm wrong, if you don't see this the way I do, but it seems like in every major civilization, in addition to those different impulses we talked about with Atlantis, but in every civilization, there's a time of revelation. There's a time of awakening to truths. And so, just as we're finding out the truths about our institutions and our religious institutions and what they're doing behind the scenes,
Mhm.
these people were keenly aware of that too in their time. And so,
Well,
and then there's always a master or a group of teachers with these different groups of more spiritually developed people that come in and try to help shift everyone's consciousness to get ready, to get prepared, to bring them up out of that influence and to bring them
sure.
into a new enlightenment. So you get revelation and enlightenment in every period. You know?
Sure.
Each
That's
epoch.
definitely true. But it was unique in Israeli society for one particular reason, because it was a theocracy. If I were to put it in modern terms, the government of Israel consisted of the what they call the Sanhedrin, and the Sanhedrin had like a Senate and a House of Representatives. The Senate was like the
Mhm.
Sadducees, and the House of Representatives were like the Pharisees. These were
Tell it.
priestly
Tell
classes.
it.
Yeah. And so when the Romans took over, you could consider state government. When the Romans took over, that would be like a federal government over
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
So that would be the analogy to modern times. So
Hmm.
because it was a unique state, because it was a unique situation where you had like the priests in charge of the whole country, which
Yeah.
no other country next to them had that. They had like a secular king, or in Egypt you had like a pharaoh, which was like an emperor.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's the key difference there. That's
Yeah.
why religion was so important to them, because the religious authorities governed the country.
Right. They had all the
Yeah.
control. Yeah.
Yeah.
They crushed them. Teresa, is it true that in some of this research that Jesus actually studied with the Essenes academically, had a lot to do with his teachings and learning, and vice versa? Not only was he being taught, but he was able to teach them as well. Is that true?
There, there's a great deal of those who believe that to be true,
Hmm.
even though it's lacking in hard
Proof.
fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of that is anecdotal, but you can't ignore the patterns. And if you take a close look at how the Essene group was split up itself from those which were highly dogmatic, very God is everything,
Hmm.
worship the Hebrew God is everything, and very into their ritual practices, you had another whole group that was tapping into what appeared to be more of the Eastern traditional teachings from Brahmanism, Jainism, Zoroastrianism, and if you go to India and you visit certain locations in India, they have what they feel is factual evidence that uh, Jesus traveled there when he was a boy, that missing time period between the ages of 12 and 30. And they even have a burial site for Mary because he went back there after the crucifixion. So apparently he didn't really die on the cross, according to them. He was injured. And they brought him back to those lands because he really resonated down deep within his soul as to the esoteric teachings and mystical teachings of, the post-Atlantean era in India, in Persia. So there's a lot of information that's being ignored, pushed aside, debated as bunk, by the mainstream archaeologists and historians. But the truth is that there's a lot to be said. That plus the anecdotal information, and so there's a group of people that believe he led the Essenes. There's another group that believe he was an initiate, learned from them, and then went out on his discipleship and started the Nazarene movement, separate from the Essenes. I personally, with all the research and everything, have come to my own belief on that, and I think it's a little bit of both. I think he did travel to India. I think he did study with the Buddhas. He did study with the Jains. If you look at their society, they're identical to the Essenes, right down to their ritual practices. And he did learn about natural law. He did learn Hermetics. He learned about frequencies and vibrations from the Egyptians. He brought back that knowledge, that hidden secret knowledge that they really felt the reason they hid it was because the mainstream Judean Jews wouldn't accept it at all, and neither would a lot of the others. So from a political and religious system, they had to do it behind closed doors to remember.
Sure.
But I think what he did is he brought back a resurgence of it, if you will, because the first Essenes, when you look at their scripts, it looks like, and from if you go back to the historians like Josephus and Pliny and all those, they knew about the Essenes. So the Essenes were around a long time before Jesus, this is true, but they were very dogmatic in some of their practices, but some of them had influence probably when the Jews were taken into Babylon. They learned some of these other beliefs and brought them back with them, but they didn't know how to put them into practice, or they had forgotten a lot of it. And so what he did, in my opinion, is what Jesus did, is he brought it back again with a new fire, fired them up. And that caused a division between two Essene groups, one which was very, very closed and didn't want other people from the outside in, and the other was very open and promoted women. And they spread and created different schools all over that area.
No. See, the main
yeah, there were two female leaders of the Essenes, and they
but that
were
wasn't the
practicing
main
natural law.
Sure,
They were practicing natural law, and so when Jesus
no problem
came
with
along,
that.
he was like, "Okay, let's keep that ball moving."
Sure,
And
no
so
problem with that.
He was keeping that moving, and so he created from them. He created offshoots, and that's why he sent his disciples out. Right?
Okay. See, the main reason why we know so little about them is because they didn't even know that much about them when they were around, these Essenes. And they were generally not liked by Israeli society. Why? Because Israeli society was basically capitalistic, and these Essenes were basically communists.
Community oriented.
Not just community oriented, they were downright communists. So they had like equality of income, equality of everything, to the extreme. And a lot of people didn't appreciate that, especially the capitalistic Jews. And
especially the rich and well-off and
rich.
slave owners. Yeah.
And if you notice, like a lot of the subsequent secret societies after them were also communistic, like the Knights Hospitalier, the Templars. They were communists, even though they practiced the banking and international banking and commerce and stuff like that. But in order to join them, you have to give them all your stuff, all your gold, and if you were to inherit anything.
Later on in the Middle Ages, you mean, during the Middle Ages?
Yeah, all the subsequent ones. Yeah, even though like the Knights Hospitalier originated in like the 4th, 5th century Common Era, but no, basically they practiced full-blown communism. Communism without the hammer and the sickle. And it was revived during the Renaissance in modern Europe in the city of Tabor in Czech Republic. And it was a city that was founded by the Hussites, where to enter the city and to live there, you had to like give them all your stuff. And if you had any kind of inheritance, you had to like sign it over to them. And then you could live there like free and clear, but everybody had to work. Where,
That's
a lot of people...
perspective.
a lot of people think that this died out, but it didn't. and the
Yeah.
flag of the city of Tabor is the diagonal red and black flag that Antifa uses to this very day. That is
Yeah.
the flag of Antifa.
Yeah.
So
Well,
the
yeah,
origins
that's
of that.
interesting that you're seeing a connection between modern day communism and
Yeah.
what they were starting to practice in the Essene
Oh yeah.
culture. And the main division was those that believed in contact in what we would call today as mysticism. They
Hmm.
believed in contacting spirits, contacting energies and frequencies. They were seeing things from a different consciousness. The other group of Essenes were still seeing the controller, creator God that you had to bow down and worship. And
Hmm.
and then within both those groups, they were they were they were looking for a zealot. They were looking for a leader. They called it the Messiah, and they were looking for people who were infused with God's strength and courage that would step up and implement their, if you want to call them, their communist-like practices and go against Roman law and even their own Jewish law. And
Sure.
so
Yeah.
Jesus fell into the camp of, I'm here to turn the tables, and I'm going to tell you not what the Old Testament says, but what the new way of thinking should be. And then the other group was still practicing, but being very, they were kind of secluding themselves and cutting themselves off. But I
Sure.
never made that connection between communism and,
Of
yeah,
course.
their communal style life for
Then
one
it,
thing. Yeah,
Just
that's pretty
who
cool,
else would make
Albert.
that?
That's
Who
cool.
else would make that connection except somebody who was born in a
Well, of
communist
course,
country?
yeah, because you
Yeah.
see that
true. That's
You
from
true.
see
that
it.
perspective. Yeah,
Yeah. And
that's neat.
it's of course the teachings of Jesus, whoever he was, and if he even existed, would have gone against mainstream Judaism because he opposed things like uh, well, he didn't exactly oppose usury, and usury or the collection of interest, that is one of the bases of capitalism. He
Hmm.
actually endorsed it in the parable of the talents, where a rich man gives talents to three of his assistants, and one of them buries the talents, and he's the cursed one or whatever. So in effect,
Yeah.
he actually endorsed capitalistic Judaism at the expense of Essenian Judaism. So
Hmm.
I really don't see any connection between what Christ was teaching and the Essenes themselves.
Oh, really? Okay, so
Mhm.
what you have to do is, well, not have to, but when one takes a look at the Gospel of Peace and one takes a look at the Beatitudes and the Sermon on the Mount, the things that, if you understand that he was using language from their perception of they have to think of everything in terms of father, mother,
Hmm.
okay? So when he's talking about father, mother, if you read very closely what he's saying and you look for the esoteric meaning, everything is metaphor. And so what he's trying to do is take their way of thinking of things and changing it from a dogmatic perspective and a personification of these energies into a philosophy or a belief that comes from the heart in its center space of love from within. So when you read his Beatitudes, if you can step out of that box of, oh, he's just a God worshiper, and look at what he's really saying with these, and
Yeah,
I could
parts
later
of
we can
them.
go over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
parts of them are
so
definitely like blessed are the poor, for they shall inherit the earth, and all.
yeah, there's different
Yeah.
ones, and a lot of it goes back to natural law
Hmm.
that comes through the ages and shows up in every major movement like Jainism, Zoroastrianism, Brahmanism. And so there's these fundamental, beautiful truths that he's trying to bring in his Sermon on the Mount is just one of them. The Gospel of Peace is another. That's why the Vatican hit it.
Or the
That's why the
saying about the
Vatican,
rich man going through the eye of a needle.
yeah. And the other was
Mm-hmm.
what they took from Enoch. Now, I'm not talking about the fallen angel stories in Enoch. I'm talking about the ones that they found balanced them,
Mm-hmm.
their energies between cosmic energies and natural energy, nature forces.
Mm-hmm.
And so for every angel they identified in the cosmos that represented something to them, they had a counterpart in nature. And I have a list of those we can go over in a few minutes. But So they were connecting with these different energies, both from, and they have a tree of life, and
I was just going to say the tree of life.
their
Yeah.
interpretation, yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Lori. You want to
No,
talk about
no,
that?
go ahead. No, you're on a roll.
Their tree of life was really interesting because they have man in the center, and they show the branches going up to these energies and
So that would be the
frequencies.
etheric realm, and then the
That would be the
roots would
etheric
be
realm,
the earth.
the earth.
Right, yeah.
And so the center was self, and the love of all these forces and energies coming in, and that we are the kingdom within. So if you take a closer look now, when you say if Jesus existed or not, um, if you think in terms of the stories about the post crucifixion, the after
Yeah,
death,
the Book of Acts.
all these stories that
Hmm.
were hijacked by Roman Christians
Hmm.
had nothing to do with the message of the Nazarenes, of Jesus, the rabbi, the teacher of the Nazarenes, who was affiliated with the Essenes. But what it does is
Whoa.
Oh, he
Oh,
froze.
Whoa.
she froze up on us.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Huh.
Connection.
Eh, Usually it's me. I'm the one that freezes up half the time, but
Yeah, happens.
uh-huh. Alrighty then. Well,
Well, yeah, the Essenes worship not just like the books that we now recognize as some of the apocryphal Old Testament, but most of what was at the center of their philosophy was the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jasher, from my understanding. And the Book of Jasher, that's the one that talks about like all these Raphaim, all these like monsters that roam the earth before the flood. Like basically describes the time of pre-flood.
hmm. Um, is it true that well, if Jesus was around in those times and he was studying with them, I heard something about Jesus's body being taken by the Essenes.
Well, that's
And
difficult to say because
I know, but it's
they were at their
fascinating. Go ahead.
yeah, they were at their height in like the 5th century BC. And
Hmm.
that's around when like mainstream Judaism, as we recognize it today, came forth. You know, because it
Hmm.
came out of earlier influences like Babylonian religions and Canaanite religions and stuff like that. But it doesn't go as far back as they themselves claim to, which would be 5,700 years ago or whatever. It does not go that far back. That's maybe the time of the Great Flood when you had like series of global events
Hmm.
that coincided with mass flooding events. But that was probably earlier. That was probably around 11,000 years ago, because there's evidence of that in North America as well as the evidence from the Reshat structure in northern Mauritania
Hmm.
and other places like the flooding of the Great Sphinx, the water erosion that was discovered by what's Robert Schoch, that archaeologist or geologist, I should say. So, I think that any kind of connection between Jesus and the Essenes would have been tenuous because, like I'm saying, I think Jesus was purely an invention of the Roman elites, and
Hmm.
it was a story designed to keep the Israelites in line because they made it seem like, okay, this guy was a Jew just like you, and he did all these things and he stood for all these things, and you got to believe in him, you know.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it was a way to subjugate their most problematic province at that time because they really didn't want to be under Roman rule.
So, Teresa, I'm curious about the a little bit of the brief history on that. Um, was it the scrolls with Rudolph Steiner, that codices versus
oh,
scrolls?
that was so cool. Yeah. Um,
What can you speak
he
about
was.
that?
Yeah. He. Let me bring my notes up, and since my power went out, I had to completely bring it up.
Ah,
So let me bring it up here. He
yeah.
tapped into something that I thought was pretty interesting. He um he was in like gave a speech, gave a series of lectures in 1912. And he had been studying what he knew about the Essene culture and some of the Jains in India, and making those connections. And there was very little documentation or citing or evidence that was actually something you could put in your hands and read, like the scrolls. So what he was doing was tapping into the Jesus spirit, the Christ spirit, not Jesus, but Christ. That's what I was getting ready to explain when my power went out. Is that there is an actual Jesus teacher of the Nazarene who was infused with a divine energy from way back when. Some people call that divine energy the Christ spirit today, but it's also known as other things, like divine source, or it's the all, the everything.
See, I would bring that forward a couple of decades to modern times, where Rudolph Steiner was basically saying the same thing as another guy who was also born in Germany but moved to Switzerland. Namely Klaus Schwab. Okay,
Yep,
Klaus Schwab is talking
Yep.
about he's talking about the Fourth Industrial Revolution and basically transhumanism, and Steiner was talking about humanism, or or anthropocentrism, as he called it, or Anthropocene philosophy, which was basically tied in with the extropian movement of that time, which was built around improving the human condition, and also tied in with eugenics.
Yeah.
What about the Vedic Zanes and the Zoroaster Proto-Egyptian connections, Teresa?
Well, so what he was saying is he felt that after his meditations and everything he had researched and looked into, my understanding is that he felt that Jesus was a reincarnation of Zoroaster. Okay, and he actually set up, I mean, it was because of him that the Vedic tradition came into being. And a lot of their information was apparently handed down. They didn't record things the way we do. They were handed down through stories and songs and teachings, verbal teachings. And they started practicing, I guess, rituals and mantras and things that would help them in their purification rituals, their bathing, their honor of water, moon, sun, water, all the cosmic elements. And so he felt that when he made that connection with Jesus, that the Jesus spirit communicated to him, I'm just one and the same as Zoroaster and even Buddha. And so he saw that as a continuation of a stream of consciousness passed down from generation to generation, epoch to epoch.
Well, even
through time, at specific strategic times. Go ahead, Dalbor.
Even though Zoroaster wasn't like the son of Ahura Mazda, which was the god of Zoroastrianism, was not Zoroaster himself. It was Ahura Mazda. And now, if you look at the depictions of Ahura Mazda, that's that he's like he's walking in the air in like that X-wing configuration, stylized X-wing configuration. You see that exact same depiction of Horus in the ancient Egyptian temples.
Here
which
it
means
is.
that that's the tie-in. And we know that the Sumerians and the Egyptians were definitely linked, because just the fact that the ancient Egyptians had a word for Gobekli Tepe, which was Get Bet Guy, that says everything. That tells you everything.
Now, from the Sumerian culture, though, they were about as far away from spirit as one can get. They were so deeply into the
materialism.
We eat, sleep, and drink everything God. These people didn't have jobs like you and I have. They lived and existed to serve the gods. And so they would get up in the morning, and before they ate, they would feed the gods. Everything they did all day long until from sunrise to sundown was about appeasing these multiple different gods who created all kinds of dilemmas in their lives, because while you're trying to please these two over here, the other two are getting pissed at you. So which God do you appease the most today? And so that was their big concern. That was their major, and that created a lot of tension, a lot of wars between them. But so they kind of like, there was this period between the ones that go back some 7,000 years ago in India to the pre-Egyptian civilization, which the Sumerians come in, where they just fell so far out of the spiritual connection that they were just all about that. And then they started getting that back when Brahmanism came into play, and then you had some of your more updated Vedic practices, and then you start seeing a lot of comparisons between what they were practicing and teaching with what the Essenes were practicing and teaching. And that's what Rudolph Steiner tapped into before we uncovered
Before they discovered
the fact that the
scrolls.
Vatican, the Vatican stuff happened in 15 years after. It was in the 20s, in the 1920s. Some people spilled the beans that the Catholic Church had been holding on to this documentation, which was mainly the gospel of peace, and Steiner had tapped into that document somehow and was describing it.
Without any.
Yeah, and either he like got it intuitively somehow, or more than likely he was a member of a secret society that was all over that already. Because, like, from my understanding, Steiner died way before the Dead Sea Scrolls were even discovered.
He died.
He was tapped in, and he was psychic. He did have psychic ability, so no doubt he was tapped into spirit.
Yeah, it was like some 35, 40 years after his death that the Dead Sea Scrolls were uncovered. And you have to understand, the Dead Sea Scrolls aren't like a textbook where you have page 1, page 2, page 3. They're little teeny pieces of parchment that were busted apart, and you have to piece them together like a puzzle to make any sense out of them. And yet he was able to articulate what's in a lot of those. Now, the Qumran codices are very different. They were found 3 years later. They date back to a time that's almost post-crucifixion. They don't go back as far in time as the Dead Sea Scrolls were believed to be. They do go back to the Indian and Egyptian civilizations and the beginning of Greek and Roman. The Gnosticism was fairly new for them in that day. And they had a very heavily
that's the thing.
Coptic...
The Gnostic scrolls were discovered in Nag Hammadi, which was like literally next to Qumran.
Well,
but they discovered it in the same year, 1947.
They were just right. The revelation came to us. In other words, folks, there's different perspectives out there, but both of them have elements. One is more nature-oriented. The other is more cosmic-oriented. One is more devoted to Sophia, the Sophia.
Sophianic myth.
Yeah, and then the other one is more Christos. But they're counterparts of one another, but they're very different in not only their culture that they were created in, but also the way in which people thought. Their state of consciousness was different about things.
Well,
but
the Gnostics were definitely anti-hierarchy. They were anti-patriarchy. They were anti-matriarchy even, you could say. And so, you can't really make a rational connection between them and the Essenes, because they would have opposed the Essenes had they known about them.
And that's the problem with mainstream archaeology and history, because they were found so close together in time. They were looking at it with two sets of very narrow lenses. The first set was just how did the people in the Middle East feel, in this area of the region feel about things. And the second piece was what's more Jewish and what's more Christian. And so they were trying to see if there was a meshing, that this is the original Christianity. No, it's the original Judaism. No, it's not. It's the original. So they got into this closed-minded debate, and they left everything the hell else out.
Yeah.
Okay, they just left.
It's also made complicated by the fact that some of the Old Testament writings are actually more recent than some of the New Testament writings, which are provably more ancient than some of the Old
Yeah.
Testament stuff that's been
Yeah.
discovered archaeologically. It's almost
Yeah.
down to a debate of like East Coast versus West Coast archaeology.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, Lori,
So
did you want to look at either one of those? Did you want to look at the Buddha tree of life, or did you want to look at the Enochian influence in terms of their connection with spirit?
I think the
It's
Enochian
yeah,
spirit.
952.
yeah, the Book of Enoch. Yeah,
Mhm.
You want me
yeah,
to go down to cover
yeah,
that? Because
yep.
this is fascinating, folks. You can
Mm-hmm.
take the Beatitudes and study them yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but when you read them, try reading them with the consciousness that of
Yep.
the
Right,
Eastern
Dolly.
tradition.
Yeah,
Yep.
Battle of
Battle of
Egos,
Egos. Yep, you got it. That's exactly
Yeah.
it.
Okay,
and
Book
it's
of Enoch. Here we go. Okay, this one, the part here. Okay, let me scroll down here. That's Sermon on the Mount. Let me get past the Beatitudes and get down
But
here.
it also boils down to like the logistical problem with archaeology itself. The epistemological problem is that we'll never know what the oldest anything is. Because
Mm-hmm.
every couple of years they come out with, oh, this is the oldest known human bone or the oldest known. Well, how do you know it's the oldest? Just because it's the
Yeah,
oldest
yeah,
one you found
yeah.
so
Yeah.
far?
Right.
Have you
So,
searched everywhere?
let me. I did start with a couple of the Beatitudes because they lead into the Enochian. So hang
Okay.
on a second.
Yep.
Okay, this one in particular. Hang on, folks. La, 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 la. Okay. Love for enemies. Okay, here we go. Let's get up here. Get up here. All right, salted. Now, this is all part of the Beatitude discussion he was having. He started out with this one. Well, he didn't start out with it, but here's how you read this. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. What did he really mean when he was telling them this? When he was telling them they are the salt of the earth.
Maybe
In
it's a
today's
reference to
modern
the
day,
Dead Sea.
Say
Dead
that
Sea.
again, Delabor.
Maybe it's a reference to the Dead Sea, which is a salty inland sea. It's
Mhm.
got a higher concentration of salt than the sea does. And that's also the source of Dead Sea salt, which is one of the most highly concentrated source
Mhm.
materials for ormus.
Mhm.
Yeah, right. That's
Let's
right.
think about this.
See?
Okay, so keep that in mind. You are the light of the world. You people are the light of the world. You, not God, not gods and goddesses. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden.
What's another word for the light of the world? How about Lucifer?
Oh, shining one.
I don't think he's
Ah,
calling them.
shiny
Yeah.
one.
Well,
Oh,
maybe it's
yeah.
I know what it is. It's that UFO up there shining down their blasting rays. I mean, what
Could be.
you go inside and see the esoteric spiritual meaning of what he's saying is you are the creation. You
Mhm.
are you are the earth. You are the light in this world. Your
Yeah.
divinity.
Yeah.
That's what he's really trying to teach there. Here's another one: the fulfillment of law. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. He says here, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify, it says, your Father in heaven. Now remember, he's trying to get into them because this is how they perceive things. But to him, Father in heaven was the all thing.
Okay, what's the other significance of salt? Salt is a face-centered cubic crystal, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
cr- it's a
Mm-hmm.
crystal.
Right.
So, that
You're the crystal grid.
the crystal grid. Yeah.
You see
See?
how these teachings
Brilliant.
are passed down,
Mhm.
I love that.
but he has to
Yes.
speak in their language so that they can understand it. The problem
Yeah.
with post Nazarene Christianity, the hijacked version of
And
what
then
they labeled, they didn't call them Christians then.
no,
So
no.
the problem is that it's been twisted into their agenda it's created this block of what he was really trying to bring back into consciousness. And this is why it's so important
Now,
that we look at all the masters. Buddha, all of them had something valuable to, but to say he didn't exist just simply because you're against the Christian religion because they twisted it. I was a Christian, and
I'm more against the Romans. I'm more against the Romans.
The Romans. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So it's like, but I don't say he didn't exist. I say they made up a lot of stories about him and built him out and added features from different characters. But the real Jesus the Nazarene, who was teaching and who was affiliated with the Essenes in one way or the other, it's arguable as to what, was actually bringing this back in. So anyway, let me get down to...
That also ties in with alchemy in a sense, because don't forget salt is the essence, and one of the alchemical essences is salt, right? Because every living thing has a salt to it, associated with it, whether that salt be a metal or a crystal or some other type of material. In other words, what he was
Carbon-based
saying,
units.
but what he was saying is that you are the essence of the earth.
Yeah. Here's one: love for enemies. Love for enemies. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of heaven. Okay? What do we tell people all the time in this community when people are attacking you, or when we try to look for what? Compassion. We try to we send them love bombs.
Yeah, but
we send them
also,
good intents, right?
Notice that he didn't outright say love your enemies. He only said pray for them.
Set your intents that they are taken care of and their needs are met. He goes on here. This causes the sun to rise on the evil, over and on the evil. It shines light in the darkness and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Water sends rain, cleansing. It's a cleansing. In other words, you've gone through something with somebody and you feel like they've attacked you, but you learned something from it, didn't you? It may have taught you, it may have cleansed you of something. And what I mean by cleanse is taking you through a self-examination. Everything he's doing here is okay. So anyway, let me go back down to
I can see that.
The angels. So take your time and look through them. It's not that you have to believe in Christianity. It's the message that goes down from generation to generation and epoch to epoch, spoken in different ways through Buddha, through Zoroastrian. So it's not that it's a God. It's the ability to find that God.
Sure, there's always
within,
good things that you can follow, like love your neighbor as yourself. That's a good thing to follow, definitely.
All right, here's a manifestation. Ask, seek, and knock. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. And to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. What's your translation on that, Lori?
I think that's the connection to the divine, actually asking and receiving help from the divine, and you can't get the help unless you ask for it. So you got to knock on the door of the divine. You got to seek the information and be open to it in order to utilize that energy.
I would add to that and say, yes, that's true. But see, a lot of people live unfulfilled lives because they simply spend their lives planning, like, oh, when I retire, I'm going to do this. I'm going to one day, someday, or whatever. And they wind up doing nothing, just like dreaming about stuff. And what he's basically saying, don't dream about anything. Just go out and do it.
Yeah. Okay. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you have some evil thoughts in you or some not so good thoughts in you, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will the power that be, or the powers of the universal, right? How much will they give good things to those who ask? So in everything, do unto others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Be the frequency you wish to receive.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
simple. It really
Okay.
is.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So anyway, and he goes on with false prophets, teachers, and whatever. But when you get down to Enoch and what the Essenes were doing with Enoch, here we go. Let's see. Right. The Essene tree of life and angelic connections. Okay, so man has appeared to realize as far back as records exist that he was surrounded by invisible forces.
Mhm.
In culture after culture of the past, he's used a certain symbolism to express his relationship to those forces in the midst of which he moves. So this mystical symbol, which has been embedded in almost all religions and occult teachings, it's called the Tree of Life. And in the outer legend and inner wisdom, man's deepest intuitions have been focused about it. You'll find it in every religious practice. There's some Tree of Life knowledge, right?
Mhm.
It was considered by Zoroaster as the law itself and was the center of his philosophy and way of thinking. In the hidden teachings of Moses, the Essene book of Genesis, it was the tree of knowledge. In the Garden of Eden, it was also the tree of knowledge guarded by angels. The Essenes called it, of course, their tree of life. So to the earlier concepts, the tree that the Essenes added elements to this tree that you don't find in some of these others. And they added angelology. The science of the angels was brought forth by the Essenes at their brotherhood in Palestine. So their angels were considered the forces of the universe, these energies that they were tapping into. It was known by many of the ancient peoples that these invisible forces were a source of energy and power. Who did the Atlanteans tap into? Right? And that man's life was sustained by contact with them. They knew that to the degree man was able to utilize these forces, he would move forward in his individual evolution in body and spirit. As he put himself in harmony with them, his life would prosper. So certain of the people not only knew of those forces, but had specific methods of contacting and utilizing them, right? So in many lands, these forces were considered to be of two kinds: good and evil, and eternally opposed to each other.
Positive
So
and negative.
Positive and negative.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
No, the question I would have is, okay, in the pre-Adamic Book of Adam and Eve, or the one that talks about Lilith, all the things that happened before Genesis, he talks about two trees. There's the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, right?
Yeah.
And they're not just metaphorical trees; they were physical trees. And in the Genesis version, Eve makes Adam eat of the tree of knowledge, right? Not the tree of life, the tree of knowledge. So,
Yep.
now granted, these can both be interpreted metaphorically, because one is a system of organizing the relationship between different forces or different virtues, like the Kabbalah. But it could also be interpreted symbolically and anthropomorphically as angelology, like you were talking about just now.
Yeah. Well, even the Toltecs in Mexico, in Central America, had a world picture. They had a picture of the world in which the good forces were called the Army of Quetzalcoatl. Am I saying that right?
That came later, because we know
Army of
almost nothing
Quetzalcoatl.
about.
And then they had the plumed serpent.
That was
And
Quetzalcoatl.
the evil forces were the Army of Tetza. Say that again. I don't know how you could get those names out off your tongue like that. Anyway, the jaguar.
Bilingual.
The dude that looked like a jaguar, right? So these two armies were shown. They were shown in the Toltec pictographs.
Yes, that's true.
As being in conflict with each other.
Oh, you're talking about you're talking about Shakmul, where they discovered like a statue of Shakmul with the Sphinx logo on his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
also very
you look
weird.
at that and you go, "Oh my God, they're talking about the same thing." They're just different flavors of the same message, the same teaching. So anyway, so the Essene tree of life represented 14 positive forces, Lori. 14. 7
Mhm.
of them were heavenly and cosmic, and the tree was pictured as having 7 roots as well.
Mhm.
And those were reaching down into earth, and those were symbolizing relationship to earth. So you had earth and heaven relationship, but they're not positive and negative. They're all positive. They're just a different type of relationship. That's what
Yeah.
Mhm.
you have,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
And Sophia, jump in if you want to say anything here. You don't have to know anything about the Essenes, but if you worship with, or not worship, but you practice with and socialize with a lot of the folks that are Jains and
I
practice
do.
brahmanism, right?
I do. I believe I've studied my tradition so much, gotten away from the tradition that I was raised in, and it's a little difficult for me to hear the Beatitudes because I just I tolerate people where they're at, but some topics are not the easiest for
I
me to
know.
listen
Yeah.
to. But I'm learning from it, and people are growing
Mm-hmm.
from it, and we grow when we are not in our comfort zone. So
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
doing the best I can to keep an open mind because
Yeah.
people that are going to come into this ministry, my ministry, the ministry at all my relations, because all of it is ministry. The more knowledge you have, the stronger you are,
Yeah.
the more
Mhm.
objective you remain, the more
Mm-hmm.
open you
Mhm.
are to focus
Ah,
on commonalities
Wow,
between
great
people.
point, Sophia. It really
Yeah.
That's
is.
where I'm at.
absolutely.
I'm looking
Mhm.
for connections from the Havamal.
And that's
Mhm.
the purpose of
Yeah.
this discussion. That's actually
Wow.
the purpose of this discussion tonight.
Yes, spot on.
Um,
Mhm.
that you're spot on because, like you,
Because ultimately, it's
I shut down. I shut
Scotty.
down when I walked away from Christianity. I shut it down,
A lot of us
and
do.
I had
Mhm.
gone to temples for Buddhism. I shut that down. And what happens is it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Mm.
It's like there's all these good little elements in here, but I'm going to throw the whole freaking capital out because something pissed me off about it to the extent that it just turned me off.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
Catholics, I will never ever go back to Catholicism because the Catholics are the most corrupt group of people I've ever seen in my life, and the way they covered up the things they've covered up. But the
You could say the
teachings,
same about the Mormons.
right? But the teachings of
Yeah.
Oh shit. Sit.
Mm.
the
Yeah.
teachings of the masters in each of these, right?
No.
Yes.
It's some of the teachings that are little nuggets of truth, and only
Mhm.
you will know what resonates with you in your heart and in your mind.
Right. Correct.
And so, but I don't want to throw it all out the window because then I would be closing myself off so completely that it would
Mhm.
just be like what, because it helps awaken something in me that either can be a memory or it could be an internal knowing, and I would not be exposed to it had I not heard it. So I have to throw all the other stuff out and just pick up those pieces which resonate within me.
See,
And
the,
guess what I end up doing? I end up creating my own gnosis.
that's
Right.
what I
And
did.
no,
Yeah.
it's not a
Y-
religion. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's
But
just
see,
your truth, your
Yeah,
understanding,
the
where
main
you're at.
the main
yeah,
problem with all these different religions or traditions is the fact that they require like books and books full of reading, okay, when in reality all those like all the most important principles and the ones that have stuck through time can be summarized in a business card, okay, in a business
hmm,
card. That's all you need. And
yeah,
what would I put on this business card? I would put down um not love your enemies. I certainly wouldn't do that
yeah,
because that
Natural
only
law.
benefits the. I would put
Mhm.
down love your well, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. You
yeah,
know, I would,
yeah.
I would pick only 3 of the 10 Commandments, which would be thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not lie. Thou
They're
shalt not
pretty
be a
much
hypocrite.
part of universal law, aren't they? They are
Yeah,
pretty much.
they are pretty much part
They
of
really are
universal law.
tied up with that. You know that show um the thing about the enemies. Okay, so in the Jewish tradition, an eye for an eye, a tooth for tooth.
Well, see, that's like the
You chop
Klingon.
my hand off, I'm chopping your hand off. You
That's
put
like
my
the
out, I'm putting your eye out, right?
that's like the Klingon version
In
of
Right.
the
Native
Beatitudes.
Americans were like that.
That's the,
Yeah.
That's
the,
beautiful.
the,
The Klingon
that's the
version.
Klingon Beatitudes.
Yeah, yeah, right.
You start speaking
Yes.
Klingon, I'm gonna start
Hell
crying.
yes. Hell yes. All right, so here we have a writing here. Okay, so the way this has been described
Yeah.
is contact with angelic forces represented for the tree of life to the Essenes, which became a daily way of life for them. They knew that to be in harmony with these forces, they must make conscious effort to contact them every day. Hello, Lori. Hello, Teresa. Hello, everybody else I know that practices this. Okay, we knew that to be in harmony with these forces, they must make conscious effort to contact them. The Essenes were spoken of by the ancient writers as an extremely practical people.
Mhm.
Their concepts weren't just theories. They knew exactly how to be continually aware of the forces about them and how to absorb that power and put them into action in their daily lives,
Mhm.
which is exactly how we start our
There's
day
an A
every
word.
day.
Yeah.
They had a deep wisdom to understand that these forces were sources of energy, knowledge, and harmony by which man can transform his organism into a more and more sensitive instrument. A sensitive
My
instrument.
world.
Mhm.
Yeah. To receive and consciously utilize these forces in their life, and they consider to put themselves into harmony with heavenly astral forces as well as Earth Mother, and forces of nature, to have balance in their day-to-day life.
Boom. There it is.
Mhm.
Balance.
Exactly.
Right.
Balance.
What do we do
Yeah.
with our
Action.
coffee in the morning, Lori? What do both of us do? We go out, we sit in the sun, we connect with
Oh,
nature, we tap into
absolutely.
our guides, and we
Yep.
and we connect with them. And I'm not
Yep.
saying everybody should do that. I'm just saying that if you do try this, it's a
Mhm.
wonderful infusion of that energy, and you get such
Mhm.
clarity of things that would
Yeah.
you not want to let into
And
your life
again,
today.
you can only
Yeah.
do that if you have like literally a balanced mind, which you can only have if you have peace of mind.
There
Only,
it is.
only if you
Mhm.
have peace of mind. And how do you have peace of mind? By having a clean conscience.
Yep.
And how do you have a
Yes, thank
clean
you.
conscience?
Yes.
Yeah,
How do you have a
that's
clean
true.
conscience? By
Yep.
living your true, authentic self
Bingo.
and doing unto others the way you would have others do unto them. In other words,
Mhm.
be your own authentic self and don't try to be
Yeah.
some other gender, some other something you're not. You know.
Right, right. Accept yourself for who and what you are, which is
Exactly.
whole and part of God. You're God's love. So,
Yeah.
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 yeah. And then be
Hey,
honest with yourself and not only yourself, but with others. What is so funny, Sophia?
Yeah.
We got
What
a
is?
bunch of Pooh Bears in chat.
Let me guess. Scotty Boy's getting him riled up with a comment. You don't have to wear your pants, but we don't need to know about it, Scotty. I'd rather not and say we did, okay?
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh my
All right.
goodness.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here's the correlation, you guys. So there's an energy of heavenly, divine, masculine, creator type, father, daddy, caregiver, daddy, father, and the earthly mother
Uh-oh.
who
Mhm.
gave birth. So you have father, mother. So there's an angel of father, mother is earth. Angel of eternal life is
Mhm.
on the cosmic level, whereas you have the angel over earth, the earthly angel and the cosmic, eternal life. The angel of creative work, the angel of creative work, and the angel of life. So creative work is on the cosmic level, life is here down here on the earthly
Mhm.
realm. The
Mhm.
angel of peace, peace from all around you, and the angel of joy
Yeah.
in the earthly realm. So you have that joy and peace come together. Then there's the angel of
Joy
power.
gods, Sophia. Joy gods.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sure.
the angel of let's see, angel of power and angel
Uh-huh.
of sun, the angel of the sun. So you have the power and the sun. Isn't it interesting that they put the sun in the earthly element?
When you refer to angels, in my mind, I think of it as a frequency, a
Yes,
specific
an
frequency,
energy frequency.
and
Mhm.
not something that's out there flying around with wings
Right.
and
No.
anointing
Mhm.
you and all of that kind
Yeah.
of hoopla.
Yeah.
Because I don't have any
Yeah. And
religious
they didn't see him with little
anything.
wings either. You know, that came along with
Yeah, but
Renaissance
it's a
period.
frequency.
Yeah.
Yes, a trusted frequency. Once you've earned their trust and they've earned
Right.
yours. Hmm.
There's an
Yeah.
angel of love, cosmic love, and the angel of water, the earthly element of water, love and water.
Yeah, I
Mother,
would
Father,
correlate the
love.
angels with like virtues, and demons would be like vices.
Yeah.
Those are just
Yeah,
personified
that's
versions
that's
of
a good way to
those.
put it. Yep, that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
I think there's
Let's
an angel
see.
that protects us from our own stupidity.
Yeah.
I'm about to come up. See, one of my
Is that the Dumb or Dumber
Dumb
angel?
and
no, hang
Dumber.
on, hang on. Okay, let's see. Panumi is a watcher in Enochian lore. He is the cure of stupidity in man. Penemue. Panumi.
Panumi.
Yeah. There's another one too.
I'm gonna shoot
But
you, Lori.
the thing that kills me about people when they start talking about angels is they have this hallmark version of what angels are in their mind.
Yeah.
And that
Sure.
is the farthest from the truth. What is it? The seraphim, which is the flaming ones, they have 6 sets of wings, one to cover their face, one to cover their feet, to protect them. And they're not pretty. I mean, crying out loud, every time they bust off in the Bible, the first thing they say is fear not. Even people that are devout, fear not.
And those wings are in an X-wing configuration, just like Ahura Mazda, and
Yeah.
just like the orbital patterns of the electrons around the nucleus of an atom.
Well, I think the fear not is also what Lori was saying. It's not so much the visual descriptions. I don't know if anybody's been in a Pentecostal church when the Holy Ghost shows up, but I'm
No.
one of those people. I have that t-shirt, been in that mosh pit, duck the hairpins. But my point is, when energy like that shows up, the gravity changes. And I think that's the other
Absolutely.
part
Oh
of
boy, you
fear
have no
not.
idea.
And
It's a whole
even
different
with
ball game.
yeah, benevolent energy has a frequency and a gravity that is difficult for this plane to navigate because it's so foreign to what we're used to.
Yes.
But I would say if you have the privilege to interact with that kind of frequency, there's nothing but benefit because you have all the natural laws that come into place if you choose to interact with something on that high of a frequency, like we started about 20-30 minutes ago, seeking that interaction, something greater than yourself. I don't care if it's a flipping tree. That's how you stay healthy, balanced, and
Sure.
grounded, and keeping the ego in check.
Yeah.
That's how I do it, man. If somebody's
Big.
happy, healthy, and growing, leave them alone. Just
Yeah.
leave them alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
Love that, Sophia.
Yeah,
Great.
I love it.
Their
Great take.
their whole perspective was like it was to keep them in harmony with everything. All these forces, knowing the difference would keep them in balance and in harmony with what they considered. They talk about the visible and invisible worlds. The book that Brian Barnett asked us to start reading, which we did. We did 2 or 3 shows about the visible and invisible worlds of God.
Yep.
Is because he himself saw the necessary balance between these different forces in both nature and the cosmic level. So anyway, this is what the Essenes were learning. This is what they were teaching.
You got to check out this. Yeah,
Mosh
Steve.
pit.
Mosh pit is a good way to describe a Pentecostal church service. I always found it so entertaining.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was fine for a while. I mean, I was with them for, I guess, 5 years, and I had the time of my life and a great sense of community. And I helped the kids. I helped the kids with their church theatrical productions. I was in the choir ministry, and I did cooking. We did parties and catering. My friend Kathy and I, and just had a wonderful time with these folks, and seeing them get the spirit going, it moves in there. But I myself personally, I became really freaked out when they would come to me like they had all this power.
Wait, do they play with serpents and scorpions and stuff?
No.
Some do.
Not the
Yeah, some do,
Pentecostals. Not the ones I was
That's
with.
what I
anyway,
thought.
But
Getting to the West Virginia, y'all.
They would come up and they would say that I want to zap you in the spirit. I want to zap you in the Holy Spirit. I go, you want to do what? I want to
Huh?
zap you in the Holy Spirit. And they
Are
go,
you
on my
kidding?
forehead. And they zap me. And they go, you're blessed and you're zapped in the head. And I'm like, get off of me.
Slain in the
Is
spirit.
this serious?
Yes.
I don't have any religious doctrination at
Yes.
all.
They
Zero,
would touch
zip,
me and they go,
nada.
you are
I
free because
think I
we've
was
touched you. You're
baptized in a
free. And I'd be
church
like,
once.
are you kidding me?
Mhm.
Well, okay, so
You know,
that's
so I
an
couldn't deal with
illustration
it.
of what I
Wow.
don't. When people
Yeah.
approach you and you're like, "Hey, I'm going to do this," it's different if you're going and asking for that type of interaction.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, I mean, that's ethics, okay,
Sure.
people.
Mhm.
I don't care
Yeah.
what school, mystery school, seminar you go to.
Right.
Okay, that is
Yep.
not okay. What they did to
Mm.
you, Teresa. What I want to bring up though, as far as the enthusiastic Christians, if you will, I would say I am further down the road in my metaphysical walk because I spent time with them and I was able to achieve an ecstatic state. You know, drumming, you can do that, but there's different
Yeah.
ways to
Mhm.
do it.
Mhm.
So, but it's definitely what was it? Scotty said something about how does he pull energy, or he's been all over the place. Love you, brother. But I would say,
I am energy. Feel free to place it where you need it.
oh, that's not the one I was talking about.
Oh,
But
okay.
um, I would say being just as connected to the terrestrial, the Mother Earth energy as you are to the celestial energy, because, like we've said repeatedly, it's about balance. Grounded, centered, balanced, shielded. You know, if you're tapped into Mother Earth, we are
Mhm.
walking Earth. We were created to have that kind of energetic interaction. And that goes back to the religious experiences or whatever you want to call it. When you allow yourself to get into a headspace, it has healing effects. When the meditation situation, healing effects, just not giving our bodies a break from the drug of stress.
Yeah. But see,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's the cheese that
see
cracker.
that's the problem with when any religion goes from being a religion to going into big religion, just like you got big business versus business, and seeking to impose its own
Isn't
worldview.
religion a business anyway?
It, to a degree, it is.
Yeah,
But
it's
when
run. They run it like a
to
business. They
when
sure
they
do.
strive to impose their will on other people, that's the
Yeah.
same thing as, like, some metalhead like cranking his metal music down the streets
Easy,
in his car.
Delaware metal music.
Delbert, make a contribution. You know, you can pray your mother into heaven if you would give me a donation for the Sacred Heart of Jesus community.
How do
And
they
you can
have
pray
the
her.
end?
You can pray her into heaven if you give me $25.
We'll pray you into
Yeah,
heaven, brother.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
Mhm.
That's the whole
Wow.
Bunch
business
of
aspect
clutch,
of it.
not the
Yes,
brakes.
no doubt about it. Well,
Mhm.
Okay,
listen,
so
you
here's
guys.
one last thought from
Okay, one
Rudolph.
last thought, and
One
then
last thought from Rudolph Steiner. Okay.
Okay. All right.
He wrote that there was an Essene community in Nazareth, and actually, I don't know if this was Casey. This may have been Casey. I'm sorry.
Okay. Edgar
There
Casey.
was an Essene community, yes, in Nazareth, made possible by a donation. So the order was known to Jesus. The order, the brotherhood. As the order's center, they were aware of the wisdom which Jesus' soul possessed, Zoroastrian and so forth, especially among the most important members. They had what we can call a prophetic view, that a Messiah must come into the world. Therefore, they were on the lookout for especially gifted people. They were deeply impressed when they learned about Jesus of Nazareth. It is no surprise, then, that they accepted him into their community not as a member of the order proper, but more as a guest, without him having to climb the ladder. Because, you see, to get to that level, you had to have been with him for over 7 years, and you would have had to gone through all these levels of initiation. They brought Jesus in as their equal.
Yeah.
And then
Without
he turned it in. He turned it in not as he turned them into schools. That's why they're the mystery schools. He believed that the temple, we are the temple, and so the Essenes did too. That group of Essenes, we are the temple. We'll bring the temple to the people. We bring ourselves to others. We don't go to a temple to worship.
In the process, they've also profanicized a lot of this stuff. Even Freemasonry has done this to a degree.
Yeah,
which is one of the
yeah,
most
sure.
popular ones. Where nowadays you don't even have to go through all the 3 degrees. Nowadays you just do like a symbolic thing where one guy out of the whole group does it for everybody else. And
Yeah.
nowadays it's almost like a pop culture thing where
Mhm.
you have like Masonic symbolism all over the place. Which at one point used to be sacred, and at one point used to be intimately tied in with things like alchemy and even the Steiner movement and anthropo- anthroposophy and stuff
Anthroposophy. Mhm.
stuff like that. Where nowadays it's literally, you know, hey Holmes, man, you ain't know nothing about the mystery schools, man. You ain't even been to no mystery kindergarten, man. You ain't know nothing about the rights of Demeter or Kion and shit.
And shit.
Righteous, brother. Righteous.
Righteous.
Right on.
Yeah.
Such a bad
Genau.
Genau.
Oh boy,
Oh.
oh boy, oh
Oh,
boy.
awesome. Okay, guys, got to keep us on track. Teresa,
Yep,
we're
yes,
coming
ma'am.
to the end.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you want to talk about actually a show that you and Dalibor, Karen, and others are involved in, and that's
Max Vision.
Max
Yeah.
Vision, yeah.
Marsha.
And Marsha Price, I'm
Marsha.
sorry. Yes, correct.
Marsha.
Called Digging Deeper. And
Yes,
I'm
it's
gonna-
up and running now. She's got it running on the
Awesome.
website. UNMVP.
Yes.
There it is.
So there's the
So
website.
go to Queen of Quartz Crystal Network. Lori's showing you the Crystal Network,
Yeah,
and there's
here
the panel.
we are. Here's the panel. I'm
There
going to
we go.
run this real quick. It's just the intro. This will give you a really good idea of what they're talking about. But this is on the Crystal Network. If you want to check out this show, it's really good stuff. Fascinating information, too, and a quite interesting chat. But here we go.
And Lori designed this front end video for us. Yes.
So yeah, you can go there, go to the website, check it out. Here it is, Transhumanism, Synthetic Biology, series parts 1 and 2. And you can view this and check it all out.
If you go to the actual page where they have
Go to the webpage.
you'll see the video, the very first video for the first episode.
There you go. And you can leave comments or questions, but definitely, guys, give it a look. Check it out. It's very interesting.
It's a good one.
Yep.
It's a great discussion. Marsha Price worked her butt off getting all this material together over the past, year or so.
Yep.
She's pulled it all together and brought us a lot of information. Dalibor, Max, Karen, we all weighed in on it. And there's just a lot going on to be aware of, and but not be afraid of, but to be aware of. And
it's also intimately tied in with current events of today.
Yeah.
Yes,
Excellent.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you.
Things
For
we
go to
can't
the
talk-
home screen, click on the Digging Deeper, okay?
Things
And that'll
we
take you
can't
right to it.
things we can't necessarily talk about here.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's uncensored, and it's
Mhm.
This is
Yep.
the first episode. There's going to be 2 more on this particular subject, and we thank Max Vision Remote Viewing for being the host and using his StreamYard server to let everybody come in and do this on the weekend. And we spent a couple hours with him, and he recorded it for us, and then Dalibor downloaded it, and gave it to Karen for the website. So we're all pitching in and doing different parts of it, but it's a very good discussion, and it just gets deep into some of the science behind what's going on. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
You want to talk about a little bit about next week's show, or do you want to? Okay,
sure.
go for
Why
it.
not?
Let's do it real quick, and then
Queen Sophia
Oh, stop it.
Mhm.
Crap at the shop. Oh,
Queen
princess.
Sophia,
Mhm.
she has enticed one of her other fellow Camp Chesterfield persons to come on back with Terry, Rev Terry,
Yes.
and Rev
Nice.
Charles and Rev Terry will be here with us to give
They're
us an inside
funny.
look at a modern day mystery school. A school not
Yeah.
unlike the Essenes, actually.
Mhm.
If you think about some of the things that they were teaching and how they were, we didn't get into detail about some of it, but if you were to take a look at some of the things that Sophia and the others were learning at that retreat center, you would find that a lot of it is the same thing the Essenes were doing behind closed doors. So we're going to have an inside look at a modern day mystery school, are we not?
Mhm.
Yes, we're going to. So that'll be fun.
Yay.
And that is Camp Chesterfield in Indiana. Yep.
Mhm.
So this is going to be an exciting show for next week. So I'm looking forward
They're
to
going to give us
putting this
some
together.
insight, right? Right,
Yep.
Sophia. You were hoping he would bring a historical perspective to the discussion.
Yeah, I think that the modern history of spiritualism, how it started, what we're all about, what we have to offer, why we're here, is it good for camp, and how things evolve over time. It's I was harassed every day for 6 weeks by my guides. Group participation is to happen now. I was not looking for this when spirit was harassing me. And that
They're
started,
relentless, aren't they?
I just, it's like, where's the mute button? Change the channel, something. But
Mhm.
yeah,
You just
March
do it
of,
to appease them, to get them off your back, right?
well, I figure what's the worst thing they can lose? And you can only
Mhm.
get, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think you can only get so far as a soul practitioner. Because if thoughts are things, okay,
Mhm.
energy follows thought, you have the same people in the same space thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
That's volume, not
Mhm.
strength.
Mhm.
So while people can stand alone and do amazing and wonderful things, and experience spirit on different levels, when it becomes a group or a seance situation, yeah, that's a different creature.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Should be very interesting.
Yes, no doubt about it. I'm looking
Yeah, we're
forward
looking
to it.
forward to it.
Yep.
I'll be at camp tomorrow. Neener, neener,
Yay.
neener.
Nanner. Yeah, I hope you have a
Good.
great weekend
Yeah,
there.
I hope
Yeah.
you're enjoying yourself there.
Thanks.
That's awesome. And
So I don't
learning a
know
lot.
if Max has a show tonight. Pay attention in the chat room. I don't know if he said anything about it. Max usually
Typically
does
he
on a Friday
does.
or
So
Saturday
yeah,
night. Yeah.
well, go over there and check out his channel anyway. Yep, it's good stuff.
I see Robert V is here, so he's
Hi,
probably
Robert
got some.
V. Good to see you. Yep.
Yeah. Hi, Robert.
Awesome.
They
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
All
Well,
right. Any final thoughts? Oh, I'm sorry. Grandpa Brian. Any thoughts?
he's been taking it all in and giving it the energy.
I'm like, oh
He
my
just doesn't-
goodness.
he just doesn't.
Yeah.
He's like the fly on the wall right now.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on the Essene scene?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's on a bit of a delay.
It seems like the foundation of their religion is basically like all other religions. There's a fundamental foundation where it all started. I wonder how all this religion got its foundation. Matter of fact, where did religion come from? And when did religion start? I mean, if you take the evolution of how Darwin says, at what stage through evolution did we discover religion?
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's the thing. Every single society and civilization on Earth, no matter how
Yeah,
primitive,
fascinating. I
has a
learned lot
religion.
tonight.
Yeah.
I keep coming back to the fact that it's when we first took on human form and we started interacting. And I mean, we took on other forms too.
Well, see,
I
the
have
thing
memories
is,
of taking on forms that weren't human, but
animals
were in
don't have religion.
minerals. Yeah. How do you know? You don't know that.
Yeah, we don't. We can only.
You
we can
don't
only
know.
yeah, we don't know.
But I
Yes.
remember running with a
Yeah.
pack of dolphins. I have those memories. And so we bonded together and we believed in helping people.
No, they're a very
Whales-
social group. They're mammals and they're
Whales are very
highly
knowledgeable.
intelligent. Yeah, they're highly
The whale,
intelligent
yeah.
beings. Yeah.
So you don't know.
Mhm.
But the
Mhm.
thing is that when we started getting more and more developed and started using things and become more aware of each other and interacting with each other, I think that's when we started creating a reason for something. Why does the
Yep.
sun shine? Look, it makes things grow. We worship you.
Mhm.
Why is it raining? Oh, it's raining. Look, without rain, the plants die and we don't get any food. But when it rains, we get food. God, we worship you.
We do happy
Mhm.
dance.
And so we started taking all the elements from nature first
Mm-hmm.
and personified them into gods and goddesses. And so we created, just as we created us, we created the concept of religion.
Mm-hmm.
Because why else? In other words, I'm going to be appeased. I want to please whatever the force is that's creating this positive result. So I'm going to feed it.
Mhm.
But they
Yeah,
didn't know what we know now in terms of how to use logic with that. It was all
yeah.
based on emotion, was it not?
Even though some of these gods were actual real people that came from a different realm, like Yahweh, he was definitely like a mean mofo who made a deal with a particular group of people.
The
So
mean
Yeah.
mofo.
Fascinating. Well, we could
That's
go
a
on all
mofo
night,
with a UFO.
but
yeah,
guess what?
a mofo
Guess what,
and a
kids?
UFO. Yeah,
Column A and B. Elohim.
yeah.
Let's go
Yeah.
down that rabbit hole.
Elohim is
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
plural
really. Thank you,
masculine. Yeah.
Sophia.
Mm.
Hmm.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, on that note, anything else, Teresa?
No, ma'am.
All righty then.
We're
All
good.
right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. We sure enjoy being here and spending some time with you. Please like, subscribe, and share. We really appreciate that. So it supports the algorithm. You know how that works. But we appreciate it greatly. And we're looking forward to next week's show. So watch for the trailer.
Yeah.
And that'll give you a good indication of what's going on. And I just want to thank everybody on the panel, Teresa, Sophia, Dalibor, Grandpa Brian.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, and lots of good luck on that new show for you guys. I know you guys put your heart and soul into that, so that's a wonderful
Mhm.
thing. So fantastic. So enjoy your weekend, everybody, and peace and love to all.
Peace out.
Yeah.
Much love, everybody.